Hi, I'm horror author Daemon Manx, and I like pina coladas and getting caught in the rain. And thank you for joining me tonight on the Unfreaking Believable podcast.
Welcome to another episode of Unfrickin' Believable. We invite you to pull up a chair and relax and join in for the next 30 minutes or so. We will bring you guests who are going to share with you the moments that have made a difference in their lives, and it's all because of that one inciting incident. We believe that life is infinitely stranger than fiction, stranger than anything the mind can invent. You might even say it's unfrickin' believable. Welcome to the podcast. We're your hosts, and I'm Jenny.
I'm Jen.
And I'm Betsy.
How you ladies doing tonight?
Doing good.
Doing very well, thank you.
Yeah, able to sit up and take nourishment today. It's an upgrade.
Yes.
Poor Betsy's
Alright.
just coming out of a little mini bout of COVID. Poor baby.
Just a little COVID. Yeah, no fun. Don't recommend
I like
this
being
to
a little
anybody.
pregnant.
I think the hardest part about that is losing your taste. I would hate to lose my taste.
Yes. When your chocolate milkshake doesn't taste like chocolate anymore, it's just not worth it.
No, it is
That's
not.
almost, you're almost at that point ready to step into the plate and take one for the team. That's just
just
not
about.
good. Yeah.
Not good. Not good. But I'm feeling great. I'm ready to get this podcast going. So let's do it.
Excellent.
Right on.
Are you guys ready for the word of the day?
Yes.
I have a really, I don't know, I'm really excited about this one today, but for a completely geeky reason. I would be willing to bet that all of us know this word. We've heard this word, probably heard it almost our whole lives. But I can tell you, I never knew what it meant, despite the fact that I knew the word. Okay, so our word for today is wuthering.
Wuthering. I've heard that
Wuthering.
one.
As in Wuthering Heights?
As in
Yeah.
Wuthering Heights, exactly. And what that means is wind that blows with a roaring sound. It can be used as an adjective typically. And you might say, for example, the scattered farmhouses hunker into the hillsides as if sheltering from the constant wuthering of the wind.
And that's
So-
perfect for Wuthering Heights.
Well, and I thought it was good since we have a horror theme today. We might be able to work the word wuthering. Ba-deep. That's all, folks.
That's all, folks.
We might be able to work that in to some future horror writing, because I know that we all write horror at one time or another, usually for autumn tales. Hi, Micah.
Yep.
But anyway, so that's our word for the day. You think you can work that in?
I'll try.
I'll try.
All right. So there's my word.
All right. We ready for my 2 fun facts of the day?
Yes, let's hear it.
Please.
All right, the first one is pleased as punch. And I know we've all heard this saying, and this one dates back to the 17th century from a puppet show for children called Punch and Judy. And it featured the puppet named Punch who always killed people. And the act of killing people pleased him. So he always felt pleased with himself after. And that's where pleased as punch comes from.
Well, that's kind of dark for a kid's
Yes.
cartoon or kids show.
Yeah. It's all right. I
Wow.
got another one too, because we've all heard the saying, saved by the bell.
Mhm.
I
And
love this one.
as scary as it sounds, being buried alive was once a common occurrence. So
Mhm.
people who feared dying to such a fate were buried in special coffins that connected to a bell above ground. And at night, guards listened for any bells in case they had to dig up a living person and save them by the bell.
Sounds like a Edgar Allan Poe story.
That's actually, that's the right time period.
Yeah.
This was actually something that we used to talk about in my English class. And do you know, and since Jenny, you're in New England, so you can make a point of making this your homework for some future period of time. You can actually, if you go into 19th century graveyards, you can still find bell hooks on the sides of a lot of the gravestones that are from that
I'm gonna
time
have to
period.
look for them because I've been I like walking through cemeteries.
Of course you do.
I've even had
It's a lot of fun.
some of my, I know Jen, you and I have geocaching in common, And one of them was a virtual geocache that led us to this ancient, like old graveyard with only, probably a dozen tombstones in it. And we had to find one. And it was so sad because the person who died was only alive for like, a month. And
Oh wow.
you had to put on this virtual geocache what it said on his tombstone. And I'll never forget it because it said a bud plucked from earth to bloom in heaven.
Oh
Aw.
my. That's
Yeah, it was
sad.
just a little tiny tombstone for a little kid. It was sad.
Wow.
All right,
Yeah.
we ready to get going on this?
Yeah, let's do it. Introduce our guest.
Yes, I'm so excited. All right. All right, so this week I get to introduce our guest, and we have Daemon Manx this week. Daemon Manx is a horror author who has been featured in magazines in the US, the UK, and Germany. Some of his works include the OJANOX series, Manxiety, and Abigail. Daemon has also been featured in numerous anthologies alongside Richard Chismar, Edward Lee, and Brian Asman, and Duncan Ralston. In 2023, his short story collection, Manxiety, hit Amazon's bestseller list. Damon, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope I can live up to that introduction.
We're thrilled to have you.
That's thrilled to be here. Thank you so much. And hey, just to double down on the Wuthering thing. So if you're familiar with the song "Wuthering Heights" by Kate Bush, the
Uh-huh.
first the first line is "out on the wild and windy moors."
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, you're right there.
Ah,
We know. And I just like to say that. So I am tasked with the very fun job of walking my father's dog every morning, since he's now getting
Mm-hmm.
older and can no longer really walk around all that well. And I happen to walk Charlie in the cemetery every morning and happen to grace the tombstones, but I have not seen any bell hooks, and I will be looking out for them.
I was going
Yeah,
to say, I
for
bet you'll be
sure.
looking for them now.
You know I will.
I'm a genealogist. I spend a lot of time looking for my ancestors, and I also take character names from gravestones. So, yeah, I'm going to be
Great
looking
idea.
too.
Oh, fun fact, that's where J.K. Rowling got Tom Riddle from. It's a gravestone in Scotland.
It's in Edinburgh.
Yeah,
They actually have a big sort of, it's a tourist site now, which
yeah.
is sort
Yeah.
of strange, but appropriate
And did you know
somehow.
there's a difference between a cemetery and a graveyard?
Yes, my
Yes.
daughter taught me that.
No,
Yeah,
I
most
don't.
people
Tell
think that
me.
they're the same because the words have become ubiquitous. They pretty much are considered the same. But a cemetery contains graves, tombs, or funeral urns, but are not typically attached to a churchyard, whereas a
Right.
graveyard is typically associated with smaller rural churches and not the same as as a large urban or public cemetery. So that's really all the difference.
That's
Oh,
something I actually had to learn while I was doing research on the
Hmm.
OJANOX series.
Cool.
ah.
So
Yeah.
tell us a little bit about your series.
Okay, so it is a 4 book series, but what it is actually it's one large story broken
Hmm.
into 4 books, 3 being cliffhangers. It takes place in 1979, kind of a throwback to the golden age of horror.
Hmm.
Uh, it's in a isolated mountain town called Garrett Grove. Um, you've got love in there. You've got children planning for Halloween because it's the week before Halloween, and there's a quarry on the side of the mountain where one of the boys' fathers actually works, and of course, a cave has been discovered, and something was probably dwelling in that cave. Um,
Ooh.
but it's Troy Fisher's favorite time of year, and Troy is our main 10-year-old boy who is really excited about Halloween, but he's having a party, and that Halloween party the week before Halloween is a haunted house that he's built in the garage, and it's called Scream in the Dark, and that's the name of part 1 of the Oceanox book 1,
Mhm.
Scream in the Dark. But several of his friends can't make it to the party because they're sick,
Oh.
and this flu or whatever it is starts to spread throughout Garrett Grove quite quickly. And that's the whole mystery of book 1. So,
Yeah, what
Nice.
is the mysterious flu?
hmm
Ooh.
yeah, Garrett Grove is in for in for a thing, and I've always, this book has actually been, I've been kind of writing this since I was 10 years old because I've taken so many life experiences, things that
Uh-huh.
have happened to me, and incorporated them into this book. So I've been working on it for 4 years, and
Wow.
it's coming out in July.
Very cool. Now,
Right
I heard
on.
a rumor that you have a cat
I
that has
do.
narcolepsy.
She does. Yeah.
How do you
She,
know when a cat has
yeah.
narcolepsy?
She sleeps even more than a regular cat sleeps. Like the only time she gets up is like in the middle of the night to come into my room and make noise. Like
Of
that's the
course.
only time. Or of course, if I wrinkle the bag of Temptations treats.
Of
But
course,
Oh,
yes.
Sydney is a tortie. She's
Aw,
beautiful. She has beautiful green eyes, and yeah, we just love her.
that's awesome. I have a gray tabby cat, and her favorite thing to do is hunt for dirty towels or socks.
Oh,
So if
nice.
anybody leaves a dirty towel or a sock, or she gets out into the garage and finds my husband's oily rags, she will drag them through the house between her feet as she comes up the stairs. And you can hear her coming because the yowls that emit from that cat's mouth are inhuman. And it's terrifying. And I'll get up in the morning and I'll find towels or socks dragged down the hallway. She'll drop it about halfway before she gets to our bedroom. And that's the only time she ever bothers anybody at night.
Of
But she'll
course.
find a towel or a sock, and it's like, oh, that cat. All right, so we have a little game that we like to play with our guests. I hope you're up for this. It's
Sure.
called Rapid Fire This or That. So I'm going to give you two choices, and all you have to do is pick this or that. Are you ready?
Okay.
Okay. Pirates or ninjas?
Oh, pirates.
Oh, pirates, yes. Play it safe or risk it all?
Risk it all.
Lovecraft or King?
King.
Ooh, nice. Good
right.
choices.
Yeah.
All the ones I would have picked.
I would have had a hard time with the last one.
Yeah?
That's a tough
You
choice for
like
me.
Lovecraft too?
I love Lovecraft. I love
I
Love.
never have figured it out. Can't understand what yeah,
King got all his ideas from Lovecraft, and I get all my
probably so.
ideas from King.
Yeah.
So I don't know. You know,
Well,
it's
that and The
kind of,
Shining,
and
the
then
scandal.
somewhere down the road, somebody will get all their ideas from us. So,
There we go.
Mhm.
Right.
yeah.
That's the goal.
I like the sort of lineage that you're painting there. That's nice.
Yeah, definitely.
When I first published, somebody asked me if I was going to use a pen name, my last name being Kulikowski. I'm like, why would I? That puts me right up there with Kuntz and King. So, yeah, that's what I'm hoping for.
Yeah, no, that's great. You're right on the K
Yep.
shelf.
Yep, exactly.
Right on. All right, Damon, I'm sure our listeners are eager to hear what we brought you on the show for, and that is to share your unfrickin' believable story. So the microphone is all yours.
Wow. So, I mean, there's, where do you start that's unfreaking believable in my story? I mean, I always introduce myself as, hey, I'm Daemon Manx. I'm a horror author with a backstory like no other author
Hmm.
you've met. Um, my big, there's ones prior to this, but the biggest thing with me is I'm a recovering addict. I was addicted to heroin for 5 years, and I have 11 years, just over 11 years clean and sober.
Right
Um,
on.
thank you.
Congratulations, man.
Thank you. Also, you know, because addicts are so known for the great decisions they make, I found myself in the prison system where I did almost a decade behind bars for the horrible choices and decisions I made due to my addiction. And I found recovery while I was incarcerated. The day I got locked up was actually the turning point in my life where an old chapter ended and a new one began. I went down a path of trying to learn everything I could, trying to read everything I could, trying to gain everything, whether it was spiritually enriching, educationally enriching, physically enriching. I went to devour that. And it was actually in the prison system where I realized I wanted to be a horror author and started writing my short stories and some of my novels. In fact, the OJANOX was written during the 6 months of my final stay in a halfway house under COVID-19 lockdown.
Oh wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's amazing. And hearing you say that that was kind of your turning point, I think, I mean, I guess I can only speak for myself, but I guess I always hope that for certain kinds of crimes, at least, that's exactly what the prison system should do. It should, kind of be that wake up call, and an opportunity to turn things around if that's within your will and your want to do. And it sounds like you really did it.
Yeah, and while I've met a lot of other guys, like I have a strong brotherhood of men who have been
Mhm.
through this system and who have come out and are now very successful, doing all different things in this world. Um, but it happens. It does happen a lot, and incarceration is something that doesn't just happen to the gang member or the mafia dude or the hitman. It affects nearly every family in America, at least. I 1 in 10 people have been through the system in some sort of way, and
Mhm.
it happens to your brother. It happens to your husband. It could happen to anybody.
Yeah.
People make mistakes, but it's what you do with that period of learning, whether you can learn from it and rebuild or not. Not everybody can, and not everybody wants to. But for those who have the mindset to enact change and try to make that you know their lowest point and to bounce back from it.
What was
Yeah.
what was the moment there when, when you made that transition from sort of the outside to the inside? When did that moment come where you said, "Okay, this is not going to be my life anymore"? Was there a specific series of events that occurred, or is it something you had to kind of get your mind around, since you were probably dealing with withdrawal and a bunch of other things as well? I mean, how did that happen for you?
Yeah, well, exactly. So the first part of anybody's run in is always going to be the county jail. Um,
Mhm.
so I was sent to the county jail, and I was detoxing, and I was very sick, and it's a long drawn out process, but I remember going up to a male nurse who was dispensing aspirin or whatever, and I said, "I'm really dope sick. Can you give me something to help me speed through this?" And he looked at me and he says, "We like to bring you down like a spaceship, hard, hot, and fast."
Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to strangle him, but I came down hard, hot, and fast. But my head was not, while I was not using, my head was not clear. And I was still thinking very much with that same mindset. And I found myself working in the kitchen within the first couple of weeks of being there. And I quickly got promoted to working in the officers' dining hall. And so I was cooking for the officers, coveted position in
Mhm.
the county jail. And I said, look at all these ingredients right at my fingertips. I could make the most amazing batch of hooch and share it with all the guys who work in the kitchen. So I immediately went to work trying to brew up 5 gallons of hooch that I hid inside the washing machine inside a big 5 gallon bucket. And I got caught about 2 days later,
Oh.
and I got sent to the hole
Mm.
during Christmas. So it
Oh
was
man.
my first Christmas in there, isolated from all family. Like nobody wants anything to do with me.
Wow.
And yeah, that was bad. But then I look out the little window, and the Reverend is walking by with Christmas bags that they're giving all the other inmates. And it's got candy in it, it's got deodorants, it's got toothbrushes, it has shirts. And I'm in a freezing cell with like a sheet. And everybody got those bags except for me and a couple guys in the hall. And I I started crying, and
Yeah.
that right there was like such
Wake up call.
a wake up call, because not to minimize all the bad that happened before, but that was the tip of the iceberg there. And the only thing that I had as far as reading material in the cell was a pamphlet on recovery, and I read it about 200 times while I was
Hmm.
in the hall. So that was like the very that's where rock bottom hit. But
Yeah.
that's after years of suffering,
Yeah.
and and a really bad decline
Hmm.
into insanity.
Yeah.
Yeah. I was just going to say one of the most beautiful things about your story is that yes, you made mistakes, but that did not define you because you have been able to pull yourself up by your bootstraps. And maybe tell us a little bit about what it was like when you first got out and where you went from where you were into a life that is now what you have.
Mm. Yeah, well, so I got there during the COVID pandemic.
Hmm.
New Jersey was hit with some of the most deaths in the prison system because we were all housed together, one on top of each other. There was no social distancing,
Yeah.
no masks or anything. So I was in a halfway house with 277 men, and by time I left, we were down to 80 of
Oh,
us.
wow.
Who
Wow.
guys who were either dropped dead, taken out, and we never saw again. Like the men in the Tyvek suits with the rifles would come in on a daily basis and remove guys who were testing positive that we'd never see again.
Oh,
And
wow.
um,
That's like a horror movie right there.
and
Yeah.
that is where the OJANOX came to be. Also, Governor Murphy in our state
Hmm.
passed that if you were within 1 year of getting out, they were going to knock time off your sentence. I had 6 months knocked off my sentence and I was released. But the world was social distancing.
Right.
And I did not have my license, I did not have a job. Um, and it's also been now over a decade since I've used a computer and known my way around. So I came out of the halfway house, and there are definitely some trauma, some PTSD going on,
Oh, yeah.
um, and the world was virtual, and I developed a really strong case of social anxiety. Um, and I did not even want to, when the world started coming back, I didn't even want to be a part of it. I just wanted to sit behind the computer and work on my material and put it out there. I was even reluctant to join Facebook when it first came out,
Hmm.
but I had a couple couple close friends who helped me, and I had a friend who was in the system in Washington who I got a lot of advice from. Who actually, you know, he's been an active member of the HWA, and he gave me a lot of advice. And like little by little, I came out, and it was actually, like I came out and I published my first book, a novelette, Abigail, which like got me a publishing deal, and got nominated for a Splatterpunk Award, and all of a sudden I'm being invited to go to KillerCon in Texas,
Nice.
and I was so nervous going that um, I was freaked out. I was totally freaked out. I'm around all these authors. I totally just imposter syndrome, social anxiety, and I met Lisa Lee Tone, who is became my editor, who actually like kind of held my hand the whole time I was there, and really just like took care of me, and I met a bunch of great people while I was there, and the Facebook community they rallied around me while I was there,
Yes.
like they were just like I would post a picture or two a day, and they were just so supportive and sending messages. And man, that helped so much.
That's great.
And watching you go online, following you along on this, you seem like, you seem out of place sometimes with the posts you put up, like, I can't believe I'm standing next to these people, but you are one of those people, Damon.
You know what? I don't think imposters in syndrome will ever
Hmm.
leave me. I don't know if
Many of
everybody
us.
has it. We all
Oh,
do.
yeah.
Oh
Yeah.
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 Oh yeah.
Well, you always think like, oh my God, I'm the only one. I'm the only one who doesn't.
They're going to
consider
figure out I'm
themselves
just
good.
faking it.
Yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
yeah.
No, not me. I'm awesome. I don't know about you guys.
Yeah, you are.
Ah, I've been telling people that myself about you.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it's crazy.
Damon, I also read something about you, much like Betsy did with the cat, the rumor she heard. You got to tell us what happened involving an accident that you were in with President Ronald Reagan's limousine. What's that about?
Well, this is the Unfreaking Believable podcast, so let's go deep here. So there's even more unfreaking believable to that. So I used to work for a company called SIR, Studio Instrument Rentals, in New York City, and we would supply the musical equipment for the David Letterman show,
Mhm.
Saturday Night Live.
Oh,
Like
cool.
I was standing right there when Kurt Cobain and the rest of Nirvana broke their instruments on stage.
Oh,
And
wow.
Wow.
like I would pick up the equipment, pick up the splinters, and bring it back. That was our equipment that they broke. So I was like working for the Rolling Stones and working for Billy Joel and
Right on.
meeting all these people, and which was also kind of the start of my addiction. So there was a job to do early one morning, and we had to pick up a piano and move it. It was a grand piano, and I'm working with a guy named Jake, and he was from Liverpool, and we picked up the piano, and we're both hungover some sort of way. We go through like the Waldorf Astoria. You got to maneuver through the kitchens, and the kitchens are always like the floors are covered in grease, and
Mhm.
you go to the freight elevator and you maneuver it. And by the time we get out to the street, the dolly is like coated in grease. And we come out on the street and like we took our hands off this piano for like one disastrous second, and it fell on its hood. And like every pigeon in New York just took off flying. That's called the "Oh Jesus" chord when
Uh-huh.
Mhm.
Yeah.
every note in the piano sounds at once simultaneously. So yeah, we pick up what's left of the piano and we start driving, and I'm driving, and Jake's in the passenger seat, and I'm shaking, and I don't notice that there's three black limousines in front of us, and all of a sudden they come to a stop, and red lights go off on top of them, and this guy gets out, clearly Secret Service, puts his hands up, and tells me to stop. Seconds later, Ronald and Nancy Reagan get out of the middle limousine, step out. I beep the horn and I wave to him. Me and Jake are like out of our minds. They wave back and they go into this hotel where I guess they're staying or whatever. And then the Secret Service guy looks at me and he's like, "You move that truck." Okay, they're double parked. This is like the east side, and it's very, very narrow. And I'm not a rocket scientist. I don't claim to be a genius about anything, but I have a pretty good depth perception. And I'm looking and I'm like, nah, there is not enough room for me to fit this truck between the parked cars and your double parked limousine. And he's like, move that truck now. And I'm like, all right, here we go.
Okay.
So I start driving and I make it past the first limousine and I'm like, oh, this is great. And then this squeal, this screech,
Oh
this
no.
noise
Oh, I can
starts.
feel it in
And
my
No.
it's
bones.
metal on metal.
Yeah.
And I can't take my foot off the gas. I can't even like I just keep going. And I scrape the whole side of Ronald Reagan's limousine and I take off the mirror
Oh
and I don't even
no.
I stop on the other side and I'm finally out. And the service guy's just looking at me and he's like, pull over. So,
This
I
is
Oh,
pull
like a
over.
nightmare.
They separate me and Jake. Like two guys take Jake to one side of the street. The other two take me. And like I'm like, am I gonna have to pay for this or did I already? And he's like, he's not impressed. I'm not funny. There's nothing funny about this. And he's like, what's your social security number?
oh
And I'm
no.
like, I said, you want my license, the insurance? He's like, nope. What's your social security number? That was it. All right, get out of here. That was it. So,
Wow.
so somewhere there's a file with my social security number, big print somewhere down in the halls of Congress where this guy.
I
Uh,
think all of us authors think we must have a file with the FBI, the CIA, NTSB. I mean, some of my search engine
Don't talk
hits
about
are
it.
really
yeah.
questionable. I think my favorite one I ever had was I typed in, how long does it take for the human body to exsanguinate?
Oh, yeah.
It's like, that's going to get me arrested.
Yeah,
Yeah.
mine was what does brainstem fluid smell like? That was my best search.
Yes.
Mine was how what you can use to delete the taste of cyanide, and I believe it was almonds.
Almonds kind of mask the taste, yeah.
Yeah. My most recent one has been does the human body burn up completely during the first run through the incinerator in the morning?
Incinerator, yeah.
Yeah.
Depends on how many artificial parts you have.
You know,
Yeah.
fun fact about that, you're actually y- it you combust in there because it's not direct fire within those crematoriums or whatever you call it. It's just it gets so superheated, but the flames actually don't touch your body and you combust.
Mm.
Yep.
Yeah.
Well, that's not gross
Fun,
or
creepy
anything.
fact.
That's a fun
There's a
fact.
fun fact for you.
For the horror writer and all of us, here's your fun fact.
Yeah, so that was pretty unfreaking believable.
That is pretty
Yeah,
unfreaking
that's
believable.
pretty
It's
unbelievable.
amazing.
Damon, why don't you let our listeners know where they can find you?
Yeah, so of course, you know, we're always easily found on Amazon. You can find all of my books. I have my own Amazon author page. Just look up Daemon Manx. You'll see all the books that I've written myself, ones that I've co-written, and ones that I've been a part of in anthologies. Uh, Manxiety and the OJANOX series. Manxiety is available at barnesandnoble.com. Also, if you went into a couple of the stores, you can physically find it as well. The Oceanox will be available for pre-order on Barnes and Noble's website. It's also available for pre-order on Amazon. And all of my material, you can go to my publishing company's website, which is lastwaltzpublishing.com.
Nice.
Last Waltz, as in the movie by the band called The Last Waltz. If you've ever
Nice.
seen it or not, I highly recommend it. It's great.
May I share a takeaway since I know we like to do takeaways from the episode?
Yes, we do.
Yes.
So my takeaway is I was thinking about going back to Damon's story. And one of the terrible things about when people come out of incarceration is that, as he was describing, he literally, he was behind on the technology. He didn't have a vehicle. He didn't have, all these things. And that's something that's so common in our society, is that even people who are trying to turn themselves around, the recidivism rate for so many things is so high because there's just, a lot of people aren't willing to hire people who have been incarcerated and all that kind of stuff. So I was thinking about that, and I just want to share this. This is not an endorsement or anything. Well, it's my personal endorsement, but it's not like a paid endorsement. There is a company called Greyston Bakery, Greyston, and they hire exclusively people who have come out of incarceration to give them a good job with good pay. They give them computer training and all kinds of social support. And they also have probably the best brownies I've ever had in my entire life. So,
Nice.
That's fantastic.
yeah, so my husband buys me a box of them every year for Christmas.
Nice.
And typically one shows up on Valentine's Day too. So we'll see. But
Nice.
yeah, so if that's an issue that really speaks to my heart, because I'm a big believer in redemption. And I think that if someone wants to turn things around, it's so important that they have a social support system that can help them do that. And I'm glad that you had that. So I just wanted to mention Greyston Bakery to anybody out there. Check out their website if this is something that really speaks to you as well.
Yeah, it's awesome.
That's awesome.
Fantastic.
Right on. All right, Damon, thank you so much for sharing your story and what makes you unfrickin' believable. And I'd also like to thank my co-hosts and my partners in crime.
Woohoo.
Pun intended.
Pun intended.
Yes.
And if you've enjoyed this episode, please rate and review it on whichever platform is your listening choice. You can join our Unfreaking Believable group on Facebook, and you can also follow us on TikTok and Instagram.
You can also visit our website at www.ufbpodcast.com. And if you have an unfreaking believable story, reach out to us at ufbpodcast@gmail.com. We'd like to hear your story too.
Betsy, how about you send us out with your quote for the day?
All right. My quote for the day comes from Robert Jordan. No man can walk so long in the shadows that he cannot come again to the light.
Love it.
I like the theme there. That's wonderful.
Yeah.
Listeners, thank you for being here today. Go out into the world and don't just be awesome.
Be unfreaking believable.
See you all next time.